What's good? Half Blind back with another video. Today we're going to be going over the new gameplay deep dive campus huddle that's out there. As you see in the background, they also released a gameplay trailer, so please go back and look yesterday. I have a video where I break down the trailer and a lot of things that we're going to discuss today, but we're going to go even further in depth with the campus huddle, which is what EA puts out for their blog for every of the gameplay changes. So definitely go check both those out. I'm working on getting 1,000 subscribers, so if you guys could subscribe, it helps a lot. Liking and commenting also helps the channel grow. Let's jump into it though. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and sum this all up for you because to be completely honest, the reason you're probably watching this video is so that you don't have to read all this, and I don't blame you because it is a lot to read. So first section here we've got is the pregame section. And in that section, it's basically some things more or less saying that they're trying to show that each player is going to have differentiating abilities between the best and the worst, and they're making it to where there's just a kind of a big gap really between the best and the worst, and also that everybody's going to matter, players, coaches, everybody involved. Same with the 134 ways to play. It's basically saying that each school is going to have their own different play style. That attention to detail is going to be really cool. But honestly, a lot of this is stuff we're going to have to just see. We'll have to actually see it in action. So that's going to be more of things we're going to find out. But that's what they have listed under the pregame section for the campus IQ. All right, so wear and tear. The wear and tear system, basically it goes through, and if you say you get hit in the shoulder a lot as a quarterback, it is going to affect you in terms of your pass velocity may be down or your pass accuracy may be down. If you get hit in the legs a lot as a running back, then you might start to slow down, your moves might start to slow down. And then obviously if your injuries get to where they're in red, or your fatigue basically gets to where it's in red, then you're going to get to where you're injured or out particular amounts of games, and resting them will bring it back to where you go from red to orange to yellow, back to normal status. Bye weeks help. So you actually have to focus on resting your players. This is going to be big in Dynasty for those of you who are going to be Dynasty players. This wear and tear system I think is really going to come into play. You're going to want to have a lot of good backups. And honestly, the durability of each player is going to be really important, because if you're recruiting from a really small school and you don't have a lot of backups, that might be something you have to look at in your dynasty is, all right, I need a solid quarterback, but I need one that could stay healthy, because that could change your entire season or your entire dynasty. I think the way they're looking at the wear and tear is really cool. It'll be interesting to see how they implement it, but that's how they're talking about it here in the blog. And a little further down here, you can see what I was mentioning about the red, orange, yellow statuses. So it shows all the different statuses and basically the risk of injury, things like that. And you can see some of these players, like in the bottom right, definitely need to be rested. I mean, if you're playing that guy any snaps, he's probably going to get hurt. So he needs to be on the bench. And not only that, but I mean, his legs are injured. I don't know why. I don't even know that he would be useful being out there at that condition. And I think that's the point, is that you got to get your guys some rest and get them in and out like you would in a college football game. You can't run guys near as many plays as you do in the NFL because the conditioning is just not the same. And they mention here, to go along with that in the changing the game section, that your decisions matter. So they talk about throwing the ball 40 to 50 times and how would that impact you other than 40 or 50 times chances throwing interceptions. What they're saying here is that's actually going to wear on your quarterback's arm. And if you're throwing 40 or 50 times, by the time you get up there, your quarterback's probably going to be a little tired, depending on, unless you have like a 5-star recruit that's pretty durable, you're probably going to be a lot less accurate by the end of the game. And they're trying to make it more realistic that way, which I do think is a good thing. Now, this section I thought was really interesting with the option. They show that there's going to be a difference in pitch strength. So you can just tap it and do a swift pitch, but your swift pitch may not be all that accurate. Whereas if you hold it, it's going to be a more of a longer pitch, but a more accurate pitch. So you're going to have the option of doing a speed option and doing a quick, just little pitch, or you do a long power option where you're going to hold the button longer and do a longer pitch. Problem is there, quick pitch might not be as accurate, but also holding it, if you get hit while you're in the pitch animation, you might have a fumble there. I think that's really cool. It's going to make some decision making really important and some skill important when it comes to running the option and how you want to pitch it. There's also showing in here fake pitches, which could be cool too, depending on how it works. If it makes defenders bite on the fake pitches more, if you're not controlling them, making users actually get up there, play defensive ends or outside linebackers, and actually making them play the option like that. So we'll see if the fake pitches actually work in making the defender bite on it. Hopefully it does. All right, and here's the source of controversy for a lot of people out here. So we do have abilities in College Football 25. Personally, I don't mind it. I know some people are actually hoping no abilities. That's not really that big of a deal to me. I think it could be interesting the way they do it. And one thing I want to point out here is it almost looks like a badge system. And what I think of with the badge system is it almost kind of reminds me of the 2K games, how they do badges. Now, I think Madden does badges and things like that too, maybe a little differently. But in this situation, the one that a lot of people are worried about is Field General. And the reason why they're worried is because Field General at Platinum, as you see here in the screenshot, looks like it could be overpowered. Let's hope there's a counter for it though. And I mean, the game hasn't even come out yet. I feel like there's probably a good chance that there is a counter for it. Let's see how it goes. Like, it could be coaches are going to have their own abilities here too. There may be a counter for it. We'll just have to see how it plays out. But right now, that Platinum description, it looks like it's pretty powerful because you can even see disguise coverage. But you also have to look at how does it activate, and also what knocks you out of it, and if there's counters out there. So hopefully there's some things to mitigate it a little bit. Otherwise, that ability is looking pretty powerful. So you're going to want to get your recruits at the Field General as high as you can. It also does mention here that there's 80 abilities, and that's why I think there could be some counters. 80 abilities is a lot of abilities. I'm sure there's going to be a lot on the defensive side of the ball, and maybe there's going to be some where you can actually disguise your coverages even from the Field Generals. So that's going to be interesting to see too. Usually a lot of these games try to do a rock, paper, scissors type format almost, where it's basically each side has their own counters, but they're also giving up something. So hopefully that's how this is balanced. It looks like they put a lot of effort into balancing, so that's my hope, is that it is balanced. But I would say probably give it some time when this game comes out, because I think there's going to be some additional tuning that's going to have to be done, because people are going to find exploits, and they find the exploits, they're going to have to patch it and nerf things or boost other things. And this is a new game, so we're going to have to just bear with some of the tuning and things like that. But as it is, I don't have a problem with abilities. I hope that certain ones aren't too overpowered, but if they are, I think there's a good chance that the devs are going to go in and make some tuning tweaks and things like that. So this here talks more about what we were talking about with Field General, and it even shows the video down here. You can actually see that it shows the blitzers, and this is going to be, I think, the silver ability, and maybe even the bronze ability shows the blitzers like that. Then when you get up to the gold, you start seeing coverages, and then you can actually at platinum see coverages and disguise coverages. And it shows here the way that you can, what each tier means. So you can see the disguise shells right there. And it shows, albeit briefly, but I really think that it's probably enough to give a lot of people a big advantage. So we'll see how that goes. You do still have to know how to break that down afterwards, but the good players are going to know. It's just, is it going to help the average player who goes, okay, I know how to beat cover 2. I know what route to run on cover 2 if I see that as the disguise coverage. Yeah, cover 2 maybe not the one that everybody's running. I'm just saying, it's going to depend on your knowledge of the game of whether or not you can take advantage of it. But I also know in this day and age, everybody's watching YouTube videos and learning how to break down plays and learning how to beat plays. It's probably going to be pretty useful. All right, confidence and composure. So what we're seeing here is a couple interesting things. They've talked about this before, but they're basically saying that seniors are going to likely have more confidence and composure than freshmen, and they're going to have to be built up to where they can have confidence in big games and big moments, especially road games. But one thing I thought was kind of interesting that I don't know that I saw a ton of is it does look like there's going to be almost kind of a hot and cold system here. And it looks like it's going to be one of those things where if your guy starts to just break off long runs, he's going to get hot and he's going to be able to do a little bit more. He's going to be a little more amped up. Whereas you start getting cold and you keep feeding the ball, it might be a situation where he fumbles, or maybe just somewhere where he's just sluggish, or he's just not making the same, good jukes that he makes. We'll have to see how that works, but I've seen hot and cold systems in other games before. That's pretty new to this franchise, but I think it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. And you probably, with receivers, you're going to see somebody go cold. You don't want to throw the guy who's cold the ball. You probably want to figure out another way to get him involved, or maybe even just take him out for a few plays and get another receiver in there. So that's going to be adding another level of strategy that I think is going to be pretty interesting. Now, coach vision is another interesting thing. Obviously, there's always kind of been a coach vision, but one thing that's interesting to me about it, and a lot of this is it shows the wear and tear in the coach vision and an easy way of seeing it. But one thing I think is kind of interesting to me is seeing the matchups, where you can kind of see good matchups or bad matchups, especially with your wide receivers. And if you have it set up, or if the other team has it set up to where you follow and have the best cornerback cover your best receiver, it may be something where your guy's getting locked down, and that might be an easy way of seeing it. Again, this is just kind of reading defense and reading keys. It's things to help you. It's something that you could have already done if you identified their best corner and things like that. But I think it's really just kind of making it easy for the everyday gamer to say, oh man, I don't know that I want to throw at that corner because it looks like I got a bad matchup out there, which I think any tools like that are definitely easy and helpful and good for the player. Home field advantage, we've already talked about this quite a bit, so I'm not going to go too far into it, but I did think this part was interesting here. It mentions that the '06 version is kind of where they got some of the idea from the home field advantage bar from it. And I didn't even think about that, but it does have that kind of retro look that reminds me of the game back then. I'm all for those little callback Easter eggs like that. So that's pretty cool that they did that, to be honest. From what I'm looking at here on the home field advantage part, it does make some differences on routes and things like that when you're calling hot routes, and you've seen like question marks pop over people's heads here. And when those question marks pop up, what is that going to mean? Is it going to mean the quarterback is going to make a bad throw? Is it going to mean the receiver is going to run a bad route and not hear what the hot route is? I think it's mostly just going to be there's going to be some miscommunication there, which is really similar to what happens in real life college football. Very true to that. So we'll see how that's implemented, but it could change up things. It really does seem like there's actually going to be a real home field advantage this year. So we'll see how it plays out. It does look like it could be a little bit more than just the screen shaking and the route shaking, even though you already knew what they were. Now maybe you don't know what the route is, or maybe you don't know how your quarterback's going to throw to that route because maybe the quarterback and the receiver are not on the same page with those question marks. So I think could be an interesting twist on road games. We'll have to see how it goes, but I do think it looks promising. Pre-play controls, they did give you guys some extra hot routes out there, and they also mentioned here as well that things like doing the pass commit and run commit may only just mildly commit you, be a little bit more granular. Like when you run commit, you're going to run commit the guys in the box, the 8 or 7 in the box that you have. You're going to be run committing those guys, but the corners are going to be out there pass coverage like they normally would, even if it isn't a run. They're still going to be covering that way. So it's not going to be as detrimental if you do it. I think they've mentioned that a lot in this, where they tried to tweak if something happens, the defense is going to react to the specific piece of what's happening rather than the whole defense reacting. So if it's an option, it doesn't mean your entire defense is going to react to the option. It may just be the linebacker and defensive end and cornerback out there that may react a certain way to the pitch, but there may be other guys down back, watching for a reverse, things like that. I don't know how it's going to work yet, but it does seem like they are doing more granular controls in terms of making guys not have the full 11 react to what's happening in the play, if that makes sense. Now they're talking about the new passing mechanic, and as you can see here, it's got a new passing meter. It's supposed to help with changing the trajectory of the passes, and doing just the tap is still a lob, holding it down is a bullet throw. But they also mentioned that throw power is kind of changing the way they talk about throw power. It's almost like speed and throwing like a bullet pass. If you think about the guys with good arms that have high throw power in college football, they're the guys that can throw it on a rope. And guys who have low throw power are going to probably have a little bit more air under it. The ball is going to be coming in a little bit slower, probably easier for the defender to get back in position. And so it's not necessarily going to be how far you throw it, but how hard you throw it. Another thing to note down here lower, they do mention the pump fake mechanic is improved. It'll be interesting to see how that works. I do hope that the pump fake mechanic actually does do a decent job, because it could add some interesting changes to how things work, because a lot of people don't really use the pump fake mechanic now, honestly, in Madden. So if they make it usable, I think that could be a good way of potentially, with the next section coming up, the way they do the switches, it could be really useful in terms of getting guys to switch on to somebody and then throw into somebody different. And if you can do that, maybe you can cross up your opponent on defense. On defense, if you can identify if, okay, they're just going to pump fake to this guy, but I still need to be on this guy, this is probably their route. I really think what they're doing here is going to be a lot more skill based. And when you look down here, this is what I'm talking about. They have it to where before the ball is thrown, or when the quarterback goes across the line of scrimmage, you're going to be able to switch with the right stick to who you want to have on defense, which I think is going to be really nice in terms of actually selecting the right guy that you want in coverage. But I think the above part with the pump fake, hopefully you can use it to throw some guys off and think, oh man, he's throwing to this guy, and it pops up at the meter over the wide receiver, and then next thing you know, he's actually throwing it to the guy on the other side of the field, and they can't get back in place. That's my hope. I hope it's a cat and mouse game like that. That's how it reads to me. So we'll see how it plays out, but hopefully it does go that way. Here they get into the playbook side of things, and it's kind of what we've been hearing. They're really trying to be true to college football and have a lot of unique playbooks. For those of you that really like to dive into playbooks, that's going to be really awesome. You can see here they have a lot of trick plays and new ways that they're doing the trick plays, and doing like the DIY reverse and things like that, where you're going to have more control on those trick plays, which, let's be honest, in college, it seems like every team has at least one trick play that they run. Some schools have one per game, and it's more than what the NFL does. So it's cool that they're adding this, because that's true to college football. But then also it mentions here that there's just different playbooks that fit each school, like with the fact that Air Force running the triple option, things like that. They also talk about here that they're going to have some certain playbooks like Oklahoma and Tennessee, where the line's going to be more spread out, similar to how they do it in real college football. So that's going to be interesting to see if things like that actually make you want to run certain playbooks more than others. We'll have to kind of see how those play styles play out. But one thing, if you are interested in this is they list a lot of the different formations that you'll have on defense. I know there's a lot of people out there that want to dive into that. It does look a little different than how Madden's set up, to me at least. I'm not as big of a playbook guy, but if you're wanting to see the playbooks, here you go. They are right here of what the defensive playbooks might look like. I thought the tempo game piece was interesting, because college does tend to have more up tempo, and tempo is used more effectively in college football, because in the NFL the rules don't necessarily allow for it. But then on top of that, the NFL players are better at adapting than maybe a college player who hasn't had as many hours to commit to what they're studying in a film room and things like that, because you got all that other stuff going on, like class and things like that. So what's interesting with the tempo here is it looks like outside of no huddle, there's also going to be an even faster mode. And with the blur offense, like what Oregon did, you're going to be able to potentially just run right back up to the line and not give your opponents time to actually, let alone no substitutions, but maybe potentially not make their adjustments. That's kind of how I'm seeing that. Maybe it doesn't work that way, but I feel like that's how they're going to make their adjustments, make it to where they can't make adjustments. And that could be really interesting because if you see something and you want to just go into that really fast option offense and not give them a chance to fix whatever they've got going on, that might let you go right down the field. Now, real time coaching, it looks like it is something that should hopefully, I think this has been tried before, to be completely honest, and we'll see if it works. It seems like it's meant to adapt and be kind of an adaptive coaching engine where, say, somebody is running constantly a certain RPO or a certain play just over and over again, that the adaptive coaching would do a better job of adjusting to it. And say you're running a stretch, either leaving the cornerbacks in the flat, blitzing the cornerback, however they want to do that with the adaptive coaching engine to stop that. Sounds like that's the goal of it. That's a really tricky thing to get down right. We'll have to see if it goes that way, but if it does, it could be really cool because I know a lot of people would love to see things like that where they have to make less adjustments. But on the flip side of things, I think a lot of people like having that pre-snap and post-snap skill where if they keep running something and the other guy can't stop it, they don't want the computer to be able to fix it for them because it's a skill gap at that point. So we'll have to see if that does limit the skill gap or if it actually works the way it says it would work here. And if it does, it could make some interesting gameplay. In the trenches, I don't feel like they really put a whole lot of groundbreaking news in here, but I do think it looks like they paid a lot of attention to the line. And to me, I love that. I was a offensive and defensive lineman in high school. It looks like they did a lot of just blocking mechanics and having it to where you should hopefully be able to read your blocker a little better. Also having it to where as a defensive lineman, maybe you're not trying to get to the quarterback as much as if you occupy two guys on the defensive line and allow your linebackers to get through, which is really what a good defensive lineman does in a lot of cases. If you have to double team your defensive lineman, that's going to already make your linebackers a lot more freed up. So things like that is really true to the game. I love to see it, and I hope that it does work that way. As an offensive defensive line guy, I really think those positions are important. And yeah, in a game, okay, maybe they're not as exciting or fun, but if you can, I mean, at the very worst, please give me some downfield blocking when it comes to plays with my receivers blocking downfield. Because in Madden, I still have guys that just ignore anybody's around them and just jog down the field. If they fix that part, I'm already going to be happy because my receivers blocking downfield is one of the things that drive me the craziest about Madden. It's pouring out here. It basically, summing it up, is just that the weather is going to be more of a factor this year in terms of fumbles, in terms of maybe incompletions, things like that. That one I don't think is too crazy. I feel like that's been in a lot of other games before. It's meant a lot less in Madden lately, I feel like. So maybe it's going to tone it up a little bit where the weather could have a bigger impact. And I could see that with college, being a bigger skill gap. Maybe some of your lower skill guys are going to have issues in bad weather. We'll have to see how that goes. But I really feel like that's pretty similar to mechanics we've already seen. And the little things that they mention here, one of the big things that I saw in that is the play action. It sounds like they did a lot of focus on play action being more effective when you actually run it in running and passing situations. So, I mean, say if you run a play action on 3rd and 13, the defense is probably not going to bite on that based on the way they're describing it. Hopefully it does work that way. We'll see when we get into it, but it seems to be more adaptive based on the scenario, which could be really cool. Again, it's a lot of AI dependencies, so we'll just have to see how their AI reacts to what you're calling. Now, there's a new kick meter this year, and the way the kick meter works, it hasn't been changed in Madden in quite a while, so it's going to be interesting to see how people like this. It looks to me like You stop left and right with the icon going back and forth left and right. And when you hit the button, you hold it and then it goes up on the power. You want to get it in green on both. And if you get it into red, even on the power, it can make you miss the kick. So you're going to have to get it right timing wise in two places. With timing based things similar to the throw meter, it's going to be interesting to see if with that throw meter, if lag plays an issue, with the kick meter, if lag plays an issue. As is with kicking in Madden, it's already timing based, so lag could cause an issue in Madden just as it could here. Now I just feel like you might have two chances for it to cause an issue lag wise. But really, I mean, most people can adjust to the lag. I don't think it's going to be too big of an issue. Swag it out. They're mentioning they've got more different celebration options. Already, that's pretty cool because college football, that's one of the things that is really good about college football is everybody gets to kind of show off their personality. And I feel like a lot of different schools, a lot of different players get to show off personality. And that's something that I think college football does really well. And it sounds like they're going to add that to the presentation of this game. And then below that, the victory formation. With the victory formation, where I think that is important, is it seems like it's actually going to be a nice quality of life of them speeding up the game. So basically, they're saying if you call a kneel down, when you get to where you call a kneel down, they're just going to let you go straight through the rest of the game. They're not going to make you do 40 and call another kneel down, then do another 40, then call another kneel down, or whatever your game clock is. It's going to just skip to the end of it. So if you've got enough time and it's just mathematically over and you can start doing the kneel downs, you start doing those kneel downs, it's going to get you straight to the end of the game. I think that's cool for speed of play because little things like that are always really nice to just get you going from one game to another, because really that minute of just sitting there and kneeling and just waiting for the clock to go, even if you just do up tempo and speed it up to 10 seconds, you're still sitting there at the line waiting 10 seconds. That's kind of a nice little quality of life, in my opinion. Now, with this time to get on the field section, one thing I really did appreciate seeing in here is they mentioned that they looked at a lot of tweets and a lot of different wish lists and things like that. I really think that from this at least, it sounds like they really tried to listen to the community. And I'm always of the mind that if you're trying to listen to the community, you're going to end up making a good game. It's just a matter of if they are going to keep embracing the community like this all the way through. Everything I've seen so far looks great and how they are working with the community. So I really hope it continues. It looks promising here. We'll see. But I mean, really, the way they've already had creators come out, the way they've already tried to address certain things and appearances and things like that that people have asked for, and the way even players wear their uniforms in college and people have been asking for little things like that. Seems like they've been really trying to listen to what people want. And they've mentioned even here that it's their game, meaning it's our game as fans of the sport. And I mean, I know it could be lip service, but it does feel good to hear. I'm not gonna lie. It feels good to me to hear because I want it to be our game. I want it to be a game that we have been looking forward to for 11 years because I want this one to be around for a long time. With that, I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up. There's nothing else on the blog here. I will have more videos coming out in college football, so please subscribe. I'm again trying to get to 1,000 subscribers, so every subscriber helps. But thank you guys for watching. Peace.